Walls.
Secret War.
Whatever. Okay. All right. Sound all right?
Yeah. How about me?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Ready?
Yep.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hello again. I am Pat,
And I'm Sean.
and we're the guys from the 6 Months Behind podcast with an episode of our What's Next podcast, where we look at the deeper reads that you can find in the Marvel app. How you doing, man?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm okay. This week we're going to look at. It's going to be basically the first of two Brian Michael Bendis episodes. We're going to look at a few books that he did. For anyone who's not possibly familiar with Brian Michael Bendis, we're going to do Secret War. By the way,
Yeah.
you told me you read it a while back, didn't you?
I have read it. It's been a while.
Okay, so Bendis started doing indie work, and then he did some private stuff at Image. Did a couple of DC books, I think, maybe. Kind of just freelance stuff.
Yeah, he was just doing work where he could get it.
Right. And then he wound up at Marvel, and they gave him Ultimate Spider-Man, and he was the guy tapped to do the Ultimate Spider-Man book.
Yeah.
And he basically, I didn't even realize it. He did like Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Team Up, Ultimate Fantastic Four, Ultimate X-Men. I mean, he did that first whole group of Ultimate books. He did them.
Yeah.
Until the Ultimates came along, when Mark Millar and Brian Hitch did it. He did all the books. Well, what happened is in 2003, those Ultimate books were selling 150,000 copies an issue at a time when, after the market crash in the mid 90s, if a book sells 100,000 copies, even today, if it sells 100,000 copies, it's done something. Okay.
Yeah.
And those books were selling in 2003 between 100, 150,000. And the rest of the titles of Marvel's titles were well below 100. And the Avengers were hanging out in the 50s, 58, 59,000 copies a month. And I'll tie this to the Avengers in a minute. So Marvel went to him with this plan for this thing called Secret War, where he just kind of takes some heroes, throws them together, sends them to Latveria, and they dethrone the ruler at that time, who wasn't Doom. It was a lady whose name I didn't write down, and I forgot.
Yeah, she was actually in the Spider-Man comics not all that long ago, and I forget her name, but she was trying to take Latveria back over, and Spider-Man stopped her.
Yeah. Yes, he did. Now that you mention it. So Brian Michael Bendis comes up with the concept for Secret War, and he puts together a group of characters that we'll discuss in a little while. And the first book comes out in February of 2004. Now, what was supposed to happen, and we'll discuss this in a moment too, is these books were supposed to ship quarterly. They didn't. Okay. They
never do.
They didn't. They were February of 2004, May of 2004, October of 2004, March of 2005, and December of 2005.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's some doomsday clock level.
Yeah. What happened problems is a guy named Gabriel Dell'Otto.
Yeah. The artist
he was an artist. He was a painter. And I didn't know this until I got to read about him, because I thought I'd never heard of this guy before. And I'm thumbing like maybe through the first issue, and I thought, holy cow, this book is gorgeous. And then I go back and read it and realize he painted every single panel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And unlike Alex Ross, he apparently can't paint an issue and get it in on time. And there's a reason that Alex Ross basically just does covers these days.
Yeah, because that stuff's hard.
It's hard, man. And he got way over his head, which is why they had all the shipping schedule problems, because he just but the book is gorgeous, man. I just thumbed through it again a few minutes ago, and his use of colors and forget how good the artwork is. It's not as photorealistic as Alex Ross's is, but it's close. But his use of colors is just amazing. Like the last issue is all blue. The issue where Spider-Man and Daredevil introduced is almost all red. Mm-hmm. And it's just, dude, the book just looks amazing. And it's hard to say, okay, you took 1.5 years to ship a book, nearly 2 years to ship 5 books. But when you look at that artwork and you see it now in either in a trade edition or you see it on Marvel Unlimited and you're able to just sit in and read all 5 issues, you're like, holy cow, does that thing look good? So the plot basically is Nick Fury determines that Latveria has been selling, like Stiltman and the Scorcher, and I forget who else. They like have $1 million worth of armor or equipment or costume, and they're robbing a bank for $50,000.
Yeah.
And Nick Fury sits there and thinks this doesn't make sense. So he begins investigating, and what he learns is Latveria is giving them all of their weaponry and their guns and all of their stuff because they basically want to cause a uprising in the United States with these people when they're ready. And so Derek's giving it to him. So Fury goes to, right. Fury goes to the president, and the president says, "No, we don't want to do anything about it," which again seems strangely familiar. And so Nick Fury just decides, okay, I'll do it myself. And this is the last time, by the way, this series is Nick Fury's last, what am I looking for? His last act as leader of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
After this, he's replaced by Maria Hill. Other things happen. Then you get into Original Sin, and we go down that path. So this is his last act as leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. But he gets his team together. Now, his team consists of Captain America, Luke Cage, Spider-Man, Wolverine, Daredevil, Black Widow, and Daisy Johnson. And he gets them together. They go to Latveria. They basically overthrow the government there, attacking the lady whose name I can't remember. We're just going to call her the lady because I forgot to write her name down.
Yeah.
Attacking her. On the 1-year anniversary, she comes back and begins avenging what they did to her. And Luke Cage is put in the hospital. Almost dies. Daredevil's Matthew Murdock is attacked at his house, and Spider-Man happens to be there at the moment. And all these heroes that participated in this were coming under attack. Fury shows up because he feels bad about it. Cap's furious because he knows what happened. And because what Fury did is once the mission to Latveria was completed, he brainwashed them so they wouldn't remember. And if you think that sits well with Logan, being brainwashed to forget anything, dude, when he shows up in the 4th or 5th issue, returning to the final act where all the villains are together and they're all tied together to become this big bomb that's going to blow up New York City, he ain't happy, man. He is one ticked off dude at Nick Fury.
Yeah, that's the dude you don't want to tick off.
Yeah, I mean, he basically he kills Nick Fury and finds out it's an LMD.
Of course it's an LMD.
I mean, that's how mad he was. So at some point, Fury swapped himself out with an LMD. But the point of all this is this started selling so well with the first 2 issues that Marvel was like, hey, we're on to something. Why don't you do this with the Avengers? And they had one of those infamous meetings, and they said, okay, we do Avengers Disassembled, and then we relaunched the team.
Yeah.
So in September of 2004, they started Avengers Disassembled. In December of 2004, they launched the New Avengers. Now, you remember the list I read before. Let me read who were on the New Avengers at that time. Captain America, Luke Cage, Spider-Man, Wolverine, Echo. She was going by Ronan, but Echo, Spider-Woman, and Iron Man. And Daredevil was there for the first 6-issue arc. Mm-hmm. Okay. He eventually, he kind of came and went on the team, but he was there for the first issue arc. So what Brian Michael Bendis basically did was took this same team from Secret War, Dead Avengers disassembled and blew up everything they had, put them in Stark's tower, okay? Put the New Avengers together with, for all intents and purposes, the same heroes he had in Secret War, and formed the New Avengers.
Yeah.
And again, if you look at the sales, and I like rummaged around, I looked at like 03 sales and 04 sales and 05 sales. Dude, the New Avengers were the hottest book out there, man. They were selling 150,000 copies instantly.
And you and I were both people who were buying them.
Yeah, and all of this, there are people who insist that, and Brian Michael Bendis has never commented on this, but that Secret War, House of M, and Civil War and Secret Invasion were all one big story arc. And Bendis is like, no, it just kind of happened, but they're really not. But once he got the ball rolling with New Avengers, it kind of happened.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was his historic run on Avengers. So you can kind of, I mean, in a time where we think of, artists or writers runs on series, they kind of become their own stories like that. I mean, it all interconnects. So
yeah, and it did. I mean, this Secret War was just from Bendis' writing, because understand, first off, nobody had ever put this group of characters together before. Certainly no one considered calling them Avengers, which is what Bendis did. His writing on Secret War is just amazing. His New Avengers run is even more amazing. This is just classic stuff, and everybody knows about New Avengers. Everybody knows about Avengers Disassembled. Everybody knows about New Avengers. Everybody knows about Secret War because it just kind of got lost, man. I mean, it came out by Bendis and it was hot, and dude, by the time the 5th issue came out, nearly 2 years later, a year and 3/4 later, everybody had forgotten about it. And by that time, he was a year into New Avengers. And that's what everybody was buying. And he was like, oh, Secret War still out there? Okay. Sure.
Yeah. And I mean, people always, especially in this age of the MCU, people just think of Spider-Man as an Avenger. But this was the first time he ever got to that level. I mean, he'd team up with the Fantastic Four occasionally, but dude was street level.
Yeah, and if you read the right way he's characterized in Secret War, you can tell he's Bendis writes him that he's unaccustomed to this, and because he had never. It almost became a thing that Spider-Man will never be an Avenger. Everybody will be an Avenger, and if you look, I want to say it was, what was it? 400 where they did Avengers Disassembled, or 500?
Something like that. Yeah, 4 or 5 issues.
Anyway, in all those issues, Spider-Man had never been an Avenger. A couple of times he made appearances. There was like the one of the Thanos crossovers that went from Marvel 2-in-1 to Marvel Team Up to the Avengers. So he kind of teamed up with them there, but he was never an Avenger.
Yeah, he was never on the roster, never in the mansion, never in the tower. He wasn't an Avenger. He was, and Marvel often treated him as, like you said, never going to be an Avenger because they wanted to keep him, separate from everyone else. And it was a big change in precedence to have him cross over. Same thing with Wolverine. Wolverine was an X-Man, and he had his solo stuff and he'd make appearances occasionally, but they never put him on the team, and that was a big deal.
Yeah, same thing with Luke Cage, man. I mean, he never, he and Danny Rand always teamed up. He and Iron Fist always teamed up, but they never thought about putting him on the Avengers. He was actually in the Fantastic Four at one point, but he was never an Avenger. So yeah, right. Man, it's a cool series.
At the time that they bring Luke Cage around in this, how long had it been since there'd actually been a Power Man comic?
Dude, it had been a while. He had been making appearances in Alias and the Pulse, mainly in the Pulse.
Mm-hmm.
But Power Man as a character was just dead. Luke Cage's character was just dead, man.
Yeah, he just wasn't around. And, Brian Michael Bendis is the reason that he's the character he is today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, dude, he absolutely is.
Yeah, and a lot of people remember Disassembled because, that was a big deal. Brian Michael Bendis got so much flack for it at the time.
Dude, he got
and,
so much hate mail at the time.
and still does occasionally. You know,
Yeah.
you still hear of some of these old school guys who hate Brian Michael Bendis for what he did to the Avengers. And it's like, dude, you know, I've gone back and read some of that stuff leading up to Disassembled, and it sucked.
Well, what happened was Kurt Busiek and George Perez had a run on Avengers. It was a long run, man. It was 4 or 5 years, and it was really good. And after they left the books, because George Perez is only going to stay in one place forever.
Yeah.
Or not forever. After they ended the run of the book, it just started wandering. And those 20 or 30 issues between when Perez and Busiek left the book and when they do Avengers Disassembled were just bad, man. They were just bad.
Yeah, it's stale.
Yeah.
It's, you know, the team is overbloated. You've got a bunch of people on there who, you know, they're C-listers, and, you know, the dynamic had just gotten old. And, you know, you can hate on Brian Michael Bendis all you want to, but I would argue that without Brian Michael Bendis blowing up the Avengers and reforming them, we don't have the movies.
I don't think so. Because at the bottom line, all of this is driven by dollars. Okay, we want to consider it an art form. We want to look at Gabriel Delotto's art and appreciate it as an art. But this is about dollars, man. And when you're one of your main titles like Avengers is at best mediocre in sales, you got a problem. And you got to go to a guy like Brian Michael Bendis and say, hey, you do whatever you have to do to fix this. And that's what he did, man.
And that's what DC is doing with him now. You know, I mean, they put him on Superman. Superman's better than it's ever been. You know, he's doing Legion of Superheroes now. They announced recently. He's applying the same formula to the DC stuff.
He's doing a mini series for him, limited series, and shoot, I can't remember the name of it, but I bought the first issue last week, and
Leviathan, something like
that. Yes, it
is.
Yeah. That was really good. Issue 1 came out last week.
Okay, I have no idea what it's about, but
I don't know, man. I don't know, and I think it all ties into the dark metal thing, but I'm not sure.
Okay,
Dark Knight's metal. I'm since I got the DC app, I'm trying to get caught up on all my DC lore.
Yeah,
really since they relaunched like 2 or 3 years ago. Okay, whatever they called it. I'm trying to just get caught up on everything since then. But dude, it's hard when you got 80 years of publishing and you're trying to catch up on it in a couple of months. It ain't easy to do.
Oh no, Lord no. I don't know how you do it. I read a lot of comic books, but I don't read comic books like that, man.
Holy cow. Right now I'm reading Dark Knight's Metal.
It's good. That I have read.
Oh, dude, and I'm reading reading all of Hickman's run on Avengers, which will be what our next podcast is about, by the way.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
All right.
So that's it for this.
Yeah, Secret Wars. Nick Fury puts a team together. They go depose the leader of Latveria, and he, you know, neuralizes them like in Men in Black, and it just doesn't go well.
No, and it doesn't.
It's crazy to think that, you know, it's been since 2004 that Nick Fury has not been head of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's always been in the background, and then after Original Sin, he's doing his
Watcher
thing. It's weird to be like, oh, it's been that long since Nick Fury was really head of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, I really miss him too. I really do. I'm looking forward to bring back.
Yeah, I could see them doing that at some point.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is Secret Wars. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at 6monthsbehind@gmail.com. That's the number 6monthsbehind@gmail.com. Also follow us on Twitter at 6monthsbehind.
And you can check out the website at www.6monthsbehind.com.
And we'll see you next week.
Peace.
Okay, we're doing Hickman's Avengers.
We can, or we can do it Sunday, whichever you want to do.
I can't do it Sunday.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Sunday night I got a thing. Monday we could probably do it Monday.
Let's just go and put 2 in the hole, and dude, then if you can't do it next week, it's all good.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and do at least one more. Here, let me reset my timer.
What was that? About 20 minutes?
Yeah, right at right at 20 minutes. Monday I have a procedure at 3, and it's just in office type thing, and I should be in and out within an hour or so. But I don't know how I'm gonna feel. So
what are they doing?
Dude, I've had this boil on the back of my knee for like a month.
Yeah, I remember you talking about it.
Yeah, and I went back to the doctor today, which took entirely too long. I had a 9:45 appointment and walked out of there at 11:45.
I don't think that's long for a doctor's visit.
Understood that most of that time was me sitting in the waiting room.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But because don't get me wrong, my orthopedists are really good about getting me in and out quick.
Yeah.
But when I go see my general practitioner, dude, if I'm there 2 hours, I'm not surprised at all.
Okay. I wouldn't. I don't know. Most of that time was sitting there waiting.
Yes.
It's cleared up enough that they can. Essentially, the infection is so deep in my skin, they're going to have to basically cut my leg open and pull it out, or otherwise it's just never going to clear up.
Yeah.
So they're going to do that Monday, and she said it's cleared up enough now that they can do that without it being too risky. So I get to have my leg cut on Monday.
There you go.
Looking forward to it. Yeah.
That'll be entertaining.
Yeah. Okay. So what are we doing?
Illuminati.
The Illuminati?
Yes.
We're not going to do Hickman's run?
Well, yes, we're going to get there.
Okay. All right. You've got a plan.
Yes, I have a plan.
Where do I find that?
It's New Avengers. You won't. Matter of fact, I'm looking so I can make sure I reference it right.
Somewhere in 2004, right?
First New Avengers 2004. Then we're going to leap to New Avengers 2013 through 2015.
Okay. All right. Give me just 1 second. All right. Okay. Ready when you are.
Count us in.
3, 2, 1.
Hello again. This is the What's Next podcast. I am Pat.
And I am Sean.
And this is the podcast where we take a deeper dive into things to read in the Marvel app. And this week we're going to look at the New Avengers as a title in the Illuminati specifically. How you doing, man?
I'm all right. How are you?
I am well. I'm doing pretty well. So in a previous podcast, previously on, we discussed Brian Michael Bendis and his Secret War and how he began New Avengers. Now, when he did that, I think they first appear in issue 7 of the New Avengers from 2004. He forms this group called the Illuminati. And they kind of make appearances throughout the New Avengers. And then there's a new Illuminati, I almost stumbled over that, miniseries where you see where they've really been together a long time and we're just learning of them. And it is, and I don't have this written down, so you're going to have to help me. It's Iron Man, Black Bolt, the Submariner,
Mr.
T'Challa,
Fantastic, Doctor Strange, and Xavier.
And Professor
Actually,
X.
T'Challa's not there. Remember, in the very first meeting, he tells them, "Nah, I ain't got no part of this."
Because what happened was in the Kree Skrull War, the Earth was almost destroyed and overran. And Tony Stark calls them together and says, look, we need to come together as the mutants, as the Inhumans, as the Avengers, as Fantastic Four. We all need to pool our information to prevent this kind of thing from happening again. And T'Challa doesn't agree with it and refuses to participate. Namor says, this is a good idea, but one of these days it's really going to come back to bite you. Yeah. So, and then we see him behind the scenes in a lot of things, like in Secret Wars from 85. We see where they have an encounter with the Beyonder. We see where they're, what else is there, man? In that Illuminati miniseries. But basically, all the major events from the last couple of decades, you see where the Illuminati were behind the scenes manipulating things.
Yeah, the biggest of which is the location and who keeps the Infinity Stones.
Oh, yeah. At one point, they carve up the Infinity Stones because they think that's a good idea.
Yeah, they basically become the guardian of the Infinity Stones, and each one of them takes a stone. And that actually ends up being the basis for everything that happened from that point on until they literally blew up the world.
Yes, it does. Yeah. They're the ones who decided to send the Hulk into outer space, and at that point, Brian Michael Bendis and Greg Pak got together, and that leads to Planet Hulk and World War Hulk.
Yeah.
And dude, that's a great run of comics. We need to do a what's next on that sometime because it's a great run. But it's the Illuminati who trick Hulk into a space capsule that's knocked off course, and instead of winding up in the peaceful world he's supposed to be on by himself, he winds up in this other populated world, and we all know where that goes. It's those guys who did this. So
they're the ones who, when Civil War comes around, there's a meeting of the minds on that.
They find Elektra's body, and it's a scroll instead of Elektra.
Yeah. They have a meeting on that. They have a meeting about Civil War, and there's of course tension there. All of the major events. Yeah, I mean, pretty much every major event is, there is a meeting of the Illuminati.
Yeah. Which brings us to 2013. And in 2013, Bendis had moved on to the Guardians of the Galaxy and the X-Men, and Jonathan Hickman was brought in to do the Avengers. And he relaunched the Avengers series on one side and the New Avengers on the other. Now, that New Avengers series that runs from 2013 to 2015 really just should be called an Illuminati series, because that's what it was. When I'm reading this, I thought, yeah, I really like the Illuminati, and we need to do a what's next on it. And I'm reading the Bendis stuff, and I'm like, yeah, this is okay. It's pretty good, but it's not great. Then I got the Jonathan Hickman stuff in New Avengers 2013. And in the beginning, Hickman did a 2.5-year run leading up to Secret Wars, where Dr. Doom took over the universe. Actually, he destroyed it and took over what was left. And all of the entire run from Avengers and New Avengers are leading up to that moment.
Yeah.
So what happens in the first two Avengers, number one, it opens with Reed Richards saying time runs out and everything's going to end. And they're having a meeting of the Illuminati. And what's happening is Earths are colliding. And it's called an incursion when two Earths come together. It's really two universes coming together, and Earth is a center point of it.
And actually, what he says is everything dies.
Everything dies, yeah. And they realize, okay, we got to stop this. So what they do is they gather all the Infinity Stones. Their Earth's going through an incursion, and Captain America uses the Infinity Gauntlet itself to prevent the incursion from happening, which is fine because it worked one time, but the stones are destroyed in the process. So now they got to figure out what to do with the rest of it. So the Illuminati, without consulting anyone else, and Beast is brought in to replace Professor Xavier, who's dead at this time. And at this time, T'Challa is participating.
Yeah, because the stakes are so high.
Right. And what they have to do is figure out how do we prevent these incursions.
Yeah.
And along the way, they brainwash Captain America so he forgets all of this happens. He forgets the Illuminati. He forgets the incident with the Infinity Stone. He forgets all of it.
Yeah, didn't take that well.
No, he did not take that well. But so they start coming up with ways to prevent incursions. And what they basically do is make up this bomb. They create this bomb, actually a whole lot of them, that will blow up a planet, hence a universe, at the point of the incursion. And if you think about the magnitude of that, okay, here's your heroes, the guys we mentioned earlier, Reed Richards, Tony Stark, T'Challa, Namor, all these heroes who are going to kill a universe. And it's, do you kill millions or billions to save trillions? Yeah. I don't know. I don't know where the trade-off is there. And the morality question of that whole thing is really what that runs about. But not only that, the Illuminati have set themselves above everyone else. They said, we're smarter than everyone else. We figured this out. And y'all are just kind of peons in the process. And the whole time, Tony Stark is manipulating Captain America along the way to help him recruit Avengers for this process, to help him recruit other people for it over an event. All this is going on in Avengers. Of course, eventually Captain America does remember. Actually, what happens is the Hulk it remembers. And there's this great issue where the Hulk is confronting Tony Stark. That's over in Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just great, man. He's literally, Bruce Banner is injecting himself with tranquilizers continually to keep from killing Tony Stark until Tony Stark gives him the information he wants. Then Tony Stark finally says, hey, this is why we did it. By the way, why don't you come join the Illuminati? So then the Hulk comes and joins the Illuminati. And they wind up, the last 16 issues of New Avengers, they're fighting with all the other heroes who are all under a SHIELD mandate to capture the Illuminati. Because as far as Captain America is concerned, they're villains. Mm-hmm. They killed a universe. They're going to kill more universes. You got to stop them. They're villains. And what's so cool is if you read the last of these books, and I haven't gotten there yet, but I remember it very clearly. Captain America, as the last incursion is happening. It's the 1610 Ultimate Universe and the 616 Marvel Universe are colliding. It's the last incursion. Everything's going to die. Captain America, Steve Rogers, chooses to live his last breaths beating the snot out of Tony Stark. It's pretty cool. Beating up the Illuminati.
Yeah, literally as the universe is ending, the literal universe, they're beating the crap out of each other.
Yes. And that's what Steve Rogers took. And that's why when they come together a couple of years later, and I forget who wrote it, and Tony and Steve and Thor just all sit down and like, hey, we need to get the Avengers back together. None of that ever happened. It's all good. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, they've always been
really everybody's like
about who, if anyone remembers this, who remembers it, what it all. Yeah, I mean, it's all real ambiguous. Right. It's obvious that Dr. Doom did because for a moment he had a change of heart, but
right.
It's just because, the universe ends, you have Secret Wars. They literally relaunch the universe. Reed Richards does. And then it's what, a 8-month time gap, something like that.
No, it's the 8-month time gap happens in the Avengers books before it's the Avengers books. Then there's an 8-month time gap. Then you have time runs out, counting down to Secret Wars. And I don't know what the time lap is between those Avengers books, Secret Wars, and when they relaunch everything.
Yeah, but I mean, when we see the universe come back into focus as a recreated universe, there has been it has existed for a chunk of time.
I want to say a year, but that's off the top of my head, and I may be wrong.
That sounds about right. But still, it's just always been left real ambiguous about who remembers what came before.
Right. Yeah, Miles Morales in his first couple of issues knows that something screwed up. Doom does, Reed and Sue Richards, all the Richards kids. That's about it, isn't it?
That's all who have given evidence that they remember. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they're moving toward Wolverine knowing.
That's a possibility. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because they resurrected him.
They've killed him, resurrected him so many times. Who knows?
Yeah, they killed him. They resurrected him. He's had something to do with the Infinity Stones, and it's a possibility that he knows, but which would make sense. He's the kind of guy you'd want to have that information.
Right.
But,
plus, he's tied into the Phoenix Force now, so there's no telling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go read
Thor.
Infinity War.
Well, Infinity War and Thor, actually.
Yes, both. Yes.
Yeah.
Actually. Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of time, Logan is the Phoenix. So.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
It's that's a messed up story, man. We've talked about that in our other podcast.
Yeah. But to me, the Brian Michael Bendis creating the Illuminati was one of the really cool things that he did during his run, because it really makes sense that he would that these heroes would organize themselves this way, and that Tony Stark would be the one to do it, and that the hubris of it all would be their downfall.
Yeah, and what you often see with great writers, and this is why I'm so excited about Hickman coming to the X-Men, is they take what's come before and they shape it and mold it and turn it into their own thing, which is what Hickman did with the Illuminati, and made it his own. It took the same characters, same people, just kind of tweaked it a little bit, and suddenly you get this whole New Avengers run in 2013, which is just awesome.
Yeah, it was one of the best Avengers runs in a long time. And it was the perfect follow-up for the Bendis era, because I mean, how are you going to top that?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm super excited about Hickman coming to the X-Men. You know, you were complaining not long ago that, well, you know, you just relaunched all these X-Men books and you're going to cancel them and relaunch them again. And I was like, dude, who cares? It's Jonathan Hickman. You let Jonathan Hickman do whatever he wants to do.
But the guy who's writing it now actually has some really good stories going on. I mean, as we record this, issue 6 is in Unlimited. Who knows when you'll listen to it? I'm up to issue 18, 19, or 20 off the stand. I don't know. It's really good. And I hate that his run is going to get cut short. I mean, he's doing things with Emma Frost and with Mystique and other characters that I don't want to spoil for you, because number 11 isn't in Unlimited yet. So, yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully Jonathan Hickman will take that and work off of this other stuff. You know, it won't just be a full-on reboot. It'll be, you know, okay, here's what we were doing, you know, now here's how this leapfrogs into what we're doing now.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, dude. I mean, I would if you want to read all the Illuminati stuff, it's there, but I would just suggest going back and reading all of the New Avengers from the Bendis era. Just
the Bendis New Avengers and the Hickman New Avengers are two of the greatest runs in comic history. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, number one in everyone's mind is always, and in mine too, is what Lee and Kirby did with Fantastic Four number 1 through 101. I mean, that's got to be the greatest run on a comic book ever. But if you look at what Bendis did with the New Avengers and then what Hickman did with them in 2013, dude, they're two great runs, man.
Yeah. And that New Avengers run of Hickman's is actually not long. It's like 33 issues.
Yeah.
But his run on the Avengers itself is like 44 issues.
Yeah, it's long.
You kind of have to read them both together, because it's two titles telling the same story. So it's a chunk to read. I think if you I think there's a reading list in the app itself that will put them all together for you, so it's easier to read.
Yeah, when I was rereading this, I didn't read the Avengers because it gets into all that builder stuff and all those two characters that are remaking worlds, and it was great at the time. I was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah,
whatever. I kind of picked up the Avengers with Secret Sin, because that's when Captain America finds out what Tony did. The issue or two before is the Hulk issue, and in Secret Sin is where Captain America finds it out.
Yeah. Okay. Just as a side note, I was looking for it and stumbled back into Secret War, which is where all of that comes to fruition. With all of the tie-ins, even though Secret Wars was only what 9 issues, with all the tie-ins,
Hundreds.
137 comics.
Yeah, because they literally canceled every book and made it a Secret War book.
Yeah, I mean, you're ending your universe, so it makes sense. But dadgum.
Yeah, and that's not counting the 70 some odd Hitman books and Avengers leading up to it.
Yeah, no kidding, dude. That's nuts.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Massive,
that's the Illuminati. I would suggest everyone go read it. If you want to get in touch with us, you can hit us up at 6monthsbehind@gmail.com. That's the number 6monthsbehind@gmail.com. Please follow us on Twitter at 6monthsbehind.
The website is www.6monthsbehind.com.
And we will see you all next time when we're discussing. What are we discussing next time?
Green Lantern, Green Arrow.
Okay, we're going to do a little DC one off. All right. Come back next time for Green Lantern and Green Arrow.
Peace.